What does it truly mean to be, fully alive? I mean, not just getting by or going through the motions, but really experiencing life with that sense of magic, meaning,
Yeah.
where every day feels like, well, an adventure. Today we're diving into something fascinating, maybe a bit of a paradox. It's this idea that we become most authentically ourselves, not by trying to be completely unique or rejecting everything, but actually by fully embracing these universal patterns. We've got this amazing collection of daily reflections, bits of wisdom that really shed light on living a vibrant, authentic life. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, it's quite a collection. You look at it and you see thinkers from, well, all over the place, ancient philosophers, modern writers,
Hmm.
but they seem to converge quite powerfully, actually, on some deep truths about who we are and how we best express that.
Hmm.
There's some really rich insight here, showing how different traditions often point towards the very same foundational ideas.
Okay, so at the heart of this deep dive, there's this concept that's, well, it's really intriguing. The idea that our souls deep down are sort of wired for certain kinds of stories. Stephen Pressfield calls it a universal structure of narrative receptors. He argues that when you connect with a story, it's happening at this really deep, soulful level.
Right. And that immediately makes you think of people like Carl Jung, doesn't it? His work on the collective unconscious.
Exactly. And Joseph Campbell, too, exploring how universal myths aren't just stories. They actually shape our deepest sense of self.
It's like Jung suggested this shared, inherited library of patterns in our minds, and Campbell then showed how these patterns, these archetypes, pop up again and again in myths and legends across all cultures.
Like our souls come preloaded with certain narrative software.
You could put it that way, yeah. Almost pre-wired for certain types of meaning.
That makes a surprising amount of sense when you think about it. And you see it play out practically. Like if you're writing a love story, the source material we have says you'd be crazy not to study the classics. Pride and Prejudice, When Harry Met Sally, Annie Hall, things like that. But
Right.
isn't there a danger there if you stick too close to these ironclad must-haves of romance? Won't you just end up writing something formulaic, unoriginal?
That's the key question, isn't it? And here's the paradox again. By really mastering those structures, things like the meet cute or the separation in Act 2 before the big climax, or having a believable rival, you actually gain the fluency you need to then innovate.
Ah, okay.
You can work within them or even push beyond them. Think of it less like a rigid formula and more like learning the grammar of storytelling so you can write true poetry.
Right.
I mean, Romeo and Juliet uses these patterns, but it's utterly original, right?
Yeah.
Same for newer films like Silver Linings Playbook or Shakespeare in Love. They work because they understand the form.
So it's like a jazz musician. They have to absolutely nail all the scales, the theory, the standards before they can really improvise and find their own unique sound.
Precisely. Or a poet learning sonnets or haikus.
Yeah, mastering the form before breaking it, or finding their own voice within it.
Exactly. The structure isn't the cage. It's actually the launch pad.
Okay, so the core insight here is that real freedom emerges through constraint, not by avoiding it.
You got it. Mastering these universal patterns isn't limiting. It provides the very foundation for authentic expression. It's like by engaging with these shared truths of narrative, you're not just crafting a story, you're tapping into something fundamental about the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where individual creativity can really flow within those, let's say, well-established channels.
Okay, this leads us to a really provocative idea about authenticity itself. We often think it means being totally original, right? But then you have someone like the fashion designer Yohji Yamamoto saying something counterintuitive. He says, start copying what you love. Copy, copy, copy. At the end of the copy, you will find yourself.
It feels almost rebellious, doesn't it? In our world, obsessed with being authentic, Yamamoto says just copy. But it's not about simple imitation or, plagiarism. The source material here calls it a kind of spiritual archaeology.
Virtual archaeology, I like that.
Yeah. It suggests that what looks like copying on the surface is actually a way to dig deep and discover yourself. Think about learning to ride a bike. You watch others, you try to copy what they do, you wobble, you fall, and then suddenly you find your balance, your own way of doing it.
Or learning a dance, following the steps precisely at first.
Right. And then eventually you find your own rhythm, your own flow within the steps.
And this seems to require a certain attitude, doesn't it? Ross Fields puts it as radical openness. He says, I know absolutely nothing. That is why each new day, each new moment is truly an adventure.
That humility is key. It's not about putting yourself down. It's about recognizing that mastery starts with being open, being willing to learn.
Like the smartest thing is knowing you don't know everything.
Exactly. There's always more. Which connects, interestingly, to what Tony Robbins says about goals. Setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible into the visible.
Okay, so that's not just about like career goals or financial goals.
No, it applies just as much to manifesting your authentic self. When you set an intention for personal growth, even if it involves copying principles or habits from people you admire, you're taking something abstract, something invisible,
Uh-huh.
and making it real through disciplined practice, engaging with these universal forms or principles.
So this raises a really practical question for you listening. In what parts of your life could you maybe copy something you admire? Not to lose yourself, but actually to find yourself.
Yeah, it's a shifting perspective. It's not losing yourself. It's more like excavating your deepest nature by actively engaging with what inspires you.
So what does this mean beyond, say, creative pursuits like writing or design? How does this apply if you just want to grow as a person, maybe improve relationships or learn a new skill?
I think it applies everywhere.
Yeah.
Seriously. Learning a skill, navigating relationships, even understanding complex ideas. The principle is look for the underlying patterns first. Learn the rules of the game. Real innovation, real personal growth often comes after you deeply understand and frankly respect those foundations. You're building on wisdom that's been gathered for, well, millennia.
And speaking of accumulated wisdom, these sources also dive into internal practices. Things like kindness and forgiveness. They argue these are just as crucial for a truly vibrant life. Leo Tolstoy, in his Calendar of Wisdom, makes this really interesting distinction between two kinds of kindness. He talks about a surface kindness, the kind that depends on your mood or circumstances, maybe even just how you were raised. It's pleasant, sure, but it can vanish pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's fickle. But then he contrasts it with this deeper kindness, the kind that comes from real inner spiritual work. And this kindness, Tolstoy says, might not be as flashy up front, but it's constant. It doesn't disappear. In fact, it grows over time.
He compares it to brushing your teeth, right?
Yeah.
Something you do because it's necessary, whether you feel like it or not.
Exactly. It's a discipline. But unlike just brushing your teeth, this deeper kindness often requires confronting things inside ourselves, our own comfort zones, our biases, maybe old wounds. The real power is in consistency, especially when it's difficult. That's when it actually starts to reshape who you are inside.
That distinction really hits home. And Confucius adds another layer here. He says something like, the goodness which you do gives you pleasure, but not satisfaction. No matter how much goodness you do, you should wish to do more and more. That points to this idea that the inner work, the cultivation of goodness, it's a never-ending journey. But honestly, it sounds like a lot of work. What's the actual payoff for all this effort? And for listeners, how do you even start cultivating that kind of deep kindness daily?
Well, the payoff isn't really a destination like, okay, I'm kind enough now. It's the journey itself that's rewarding. It's like any creative process, isn't it? There's always another story to write, another level of skill to reach, another depth of authenticity to find. The satisfaction comes from the doing, the ongoing engagement.
Not from finishing.
Right, and starting. It begins with making a conscious choice every day, maybe every moment, to try and align yourself with that principle of deeper kindness, even when you don't feel like it. Especially then, actually. That consistency builds the muscle.
Okay. And speaking of inner work and strength, the sources are pretty clear that forgiveness is not for the weak. They call it a mark of spiritual strength and confidence. That's powerful.
It really is. And if you connect this back to the bigger picture we've been discussing, kindness, forgiveness, these are practices. They align us with universal principles of human flourishing. It's like how understanding genre conventions aligns a writer with the soul's expectations for a story. These inner practices align us with deeper truths about well-being.
So forgiveness isn't just letting someone off the hook.
Not at all. The material explains that when you forgive, you grow. Your heart heals, you stand taller, metaphorically speaking. Your vision clears so you can see the path ahead. It even calls holding on to anger a kind of spiritual sickness.
I like the analogy they use of carrying a heavy backpack. Forgiveness is choosing to put it down.
Exactly.
It's primarily for the forgiver, not about whether the other person deserves it. It's about freeing yourself.
Absolutely. It's a profound act of self-liberation. It lets you move forward with clarity instead of being dragged down by resentment.
Okay, so we've talked about inner structures, copying, kindness, forgiveness. How does this all translate into living that fully alive life that St. Irenaeus mentioned? You know, the glory of God as a man fully alive.
Well, that full life, according to these sources, definitely includes some practical dimensions.
Like money, that often comes up.
Yes, And the perspective here is quite nuanced, I think. It's not just money can't buy happiness.
Right.
The takeaway seems to be money might not buy happiness, but it can buy contentment. It can shield you from certain kinds of unhappiness.
Okay, explain that difference.
Wow.
Contentment versus happiness.
Think of it like this. Money won't necessarily increase the number of happy days in your life, but it can decrease the number of sad or stressful days. They use a good umbrella analogy. Money is like a solid umbrella. It keeps you dry when it's raining. It prevents those miserable wet days. But the umbrella doesn't make a sunny day any more beautiful.
Ah, I see. So financial security creates a buffer. It frees up mental and emotional space.
Precisely. It creates the space, the shelter needed to do that deeper inner work we've been talking about, instead of constantly being buffeted by survival worries.
That's a really useful way to think about it. And then there's this other metric, which is quite profound. You can measure the love you bring to each day by the joy you experience in each moment.
Mm.
That's not about forcing yourself to be happy, is it? It sounds more like phrasing it as a daily practice, a choice, moment by moment, to approach things with love and openness.
Yes, exactly. Rather than leading with fear or defensiveness, it's about the orientation you bring to the moment. And it's striking how this connects back to humility, too. Ezra Taft Benson is quoted. Pride is concerned with who is right. Humility is concerned with what is right.
Okay.
So authenticity, in this view, isn't about shouting, "Look how unique I am," against the grain. It's about finding your unique way to embody what is universally true or right.
Like finding your own voice within the established principles.
Yes. Like a musical instrument, finding its unique voice not by fighting acoustics, but by perfectly resonating with the laws of sound. It conforms to find its freedom.
That really simplifies the idea of humility, makes it less about self-abasement and more about alignment. And to wrap these practical points up, there's this simple but powerful reminder. Big things often have small beginnings.
An oak tree from just an acorn?
A whole song from one single note, a lifelong friendship that started with just saying hello.
It validates the importance of all those small, daily, seemingly modest actions we've been discussing.
So when you put all these pieces together, the universal patterns, the copying, the inner work, the practical stuff, what's the big picture?
I think it synthesizes into this idea of sacred work. The ongoing effort to align our personal will, our choices, our actions with these larger universal truths. And those daily choices, whether it's studying a craft, practicing kindness when it's hard, choosing forgiveness, managing resources wisely, they aren't insignificant. They are the small beginnings.
The acorns.
Exactly, the acorns that lead to profound personal transformation and ultimately to realizing that fully alive state.
Wow, so this whole deep dive really flips the script on authenticity, doesn't it?
Right.
It's less about inventing yourself from scratch and much more about discovering yourself through participation in these bigger human stories and patterns, whether that's literally writing stories or developing your character, handling money, building relationships. It's all part of aligning your unique gifts with these timeless structures.
We truly find ourselves, it seems, not by rejecting the ancient forms and universal truths, but by inhabiting them so completely, so authentically, that they become the natural, almost effortless expression of who we were always meant to be.
It's a paradox, yeah.
A beautiful one, though, and one that unlocks perhaps the truest kind of freedom.
And maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener, to take away from this. Consider that the joy you experience in each moment might just be both the measure and the reward of this whole ongoing transformation. So maybe ask yourself, what adventure, what area of learning or growth will you open yourself up to today by embracing something that seems universal? How might that small beginning, that act of copying or engaging with a principle, lead to something truly big and authentic in your life?